Customer service teams today operate in information silos, deal with spikes in request volumes and escalations, and struggle to hire and retain talent. This sets the stage for effective implementation of new context aware conversation and information generation tools that make it possible to scale high quality in house customer service in ways that were not previously possible. Leveraging transformer networks and large language models have demonstrated the ability to handle common customer support tasks like case information retrieval and text or article generation out of the box without explicit task specific training. Few short learning capabilities have reduced training costs, and LLMs can further be fine tuned to fit domain specific use cases for the customer support function. To dive deeper into these topics and learn best practices for integrating large language models into your customer support team, we have joining us today Vishal Sharma, who is the Chief Technology Officer at SearchUnify, and David Edelman, an AI consultant and senior business lecturer at Harvard Business School. With over 30 years of experience as a chief marketing officer, David leverages his technical and analytical expertise to help several consultancy businesses. He's an insights driven executive with an unwavering commitment to innovation and results combined with the dedication to customers' needs. Welcome, David, to SEO Innovate.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. It's great having you here. With more than 15 years experience working on support optimization models and enabling improved self-service outcomes with the power of AI, Vishal is a central point for technology innovation at SearchUnify, a unified cognitive platform. Welcome, Vishal, to SEO Innovate.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
And without taking any more time, Vishal, I'll hand it off to you to set the stage for this session.
Awesome. What an exciting topic, Garima, and thank you so much for the warm welcome and introductions as well. LLMs, you've seen some crazy development in this space in the last 6 months, I would say. And it's not just about LLMs, but I think some of the things that we are seeing now is actually doing very domain-specific large language models as well, which are specific to those use cases. So some crazy things happening in this space. And one of the things that I really want to call it in the beginning itself is even though the core algorithm sits around word prediction, but I think it's definitely a moment where we can think of tons of use cases for support. We just need to step back and see what are the different functions, day-to-day jobs that support teams are doing, where we can leverage all of these models. And I'm sure we've got an amazing guest today, David, with us. And David, you probably will have so many use cases that you would probably want to share about the support. And but before we get into that, I really want to get your this thing into you see, I mean, you get a new technology, everyone wants to be the first in that, right? And you don't want to miss this thing. You want to be those early adopters. Any interesting anecdotes that you have based on in different customers trying to do the experiment with generative AI that you would want to share with our audience?
Yeah, a couple, and it's in the early days. Everyone's just starting to play around with it. And especially they are being careful though, not yet to expose it directly to customers because there's still a lot of risks involved. But behind the scenes, here's a couple of really good anecdotes. So for one healthcare company, one of the challenges is going through as many as 9 different computer screens to go into different databases to answer questions such as whether a particular member is eligible for a benefit, and if so, what would it cost them, and where, which is a local doctor, where they can take advantage of that. And there's a number of pieces in that question. And I think when we look at generative AI, we shouldn't just look at only its ability to generate language, it also generates code. And so what this company is doing is giving a prompt interface to the reps so that they can just simply say, is Vishal eligible for this? Just taking the questions I just said, is Vishal eligible for this particular benefit? If so, what will it cost? And then the code gets written by the generative AI goes into the various systems and pulls out a simple language answer. So they are starting to use that instead of having to spend the money to literally integrate 9 different systems, which is quite challenging to do and a big cost, using the generative AI to reach in and pull together the answer for the rep. So that's one example. And I think that whole concept of enabling people to do more complex tasks through a simple prompt is something we should think about, not just the language aspects of it. Another example, and this is from a telecom company, where they're using the AI to look at natural language processing of all the calls they get in X period of time. So let's say a day, a week, and then use that natural language processing to create summaries of what were the hot topics. Because the reps are not very good after a call at classifying what an actual call was about, what the issues were. And they also don't capture things like language and tonality. Are they angry? Things like that. And so this AI can actually go into the recordings that happen between a rep and a customer and pull out major things. So for example, one of the things that they found were people were calling in because they were having trouble with an app to actually pay a bill online. And they were able to find that within a day, immediately, that people were calling in with that and can track that right to the app, figure out, oh, it was our latest release that we did of the new Apple iOS version of the app. There must be a bug. So let's get right into that and fix that. So, that's another kind of thing where you're using the generative AI to take a large amount of language, all that natural language processing, summarize that down and bring up some key things that managers can act upon. So those are things already that people are using. There are tools out there to enable that. It's still, again, as you can tell, behind the scenes. It's not a customer directly interfacing with it, but it's a start. And the tools are coming out there. Vishal, I bet in your area, in Search Unify and in Grazidi overall, there's a lot of questions about whether people should create their own tools, whether they should use off-the-shelf tools, how to integrate those tools into their environments. I'm sure there's some guidelines and things you're thinking about in terms of the strategies for how your clients should get into the game and start playing.
Oh, it's a great question. And we've been getting such inquiries already. And if you ask me, the vendor at my heart would always say that go and just buy it instead of building it. But fundamental level, I think it boils down to the 3 simple things. And I just call it a easy score: cost, effort, and control at the end of the day, right? If you pick anything off the shelf, it's not very expensive to begin with. You just have to pay for the cost of inference for all of these large language models. If you talk about the effort, that also is, I think, not too high. Learning curve is not very high. You just need to understand basic how LangChain, chain, and all these kind of things work. So it's easy to get started. I think if you just pick off the shelf, OpenAI or take Hugging Face, any other example, easy to get started, I would say. But when you talk about the control, then there is a question mark, right? You really don't know what sort of a data it's been trained on. At the end of the day, where is your data going? Is it being used for something else as well? We've already seen certain lapses in the past 2 months, security lapses. So I think when it comes to the control, then definitely I think you really don't have that piece. It's completely black box for you at the end of the day. But similarly, on the other side, if you go for something which is more in-house and you try and build it against just going for these off-the-shelf, cost is pretty high. I mean, these models are running on GPUs, right? Not everyone has that sort of infrastructure in place. So you can't really think of actually deploying anything in-house. You can always think of doing some sort of a quantization, doing a stripped down version of models and just put it in your infrastructure. but that cost you the accuracy, right, at the end of the day. So I think obviously I would say if you have something which you kind of just go and test some sort of a pilot, I would strongly suggest use off the shelf, try it, test the results. If you're thinking of building a more scalable integration, because technically all of these things off the shelf that you're using, there's a low starting cost, but as you scale the setup, that is going to be expensive. And you don't have any control on that. So again, like if you're thinking of building something for a long term or something that has to scale in future, then possibly you would probably want to just bring it in your infrastructure locally, just build it, try it, and then there are other things you can do. For example, few short learning that Ima already pointed out in the introductions as well. These are like some smart techniques that you can use, and you really don't have to go through huge cycles of training as well. And this is why I think one of the things within our product as well, David, the direction that we are taking is that we want to be very open to our customers in terms of the kind of technology for these generative and LLMs they want to pick at the end of the day. So our direction is like, come to the interface, just do a plug and play, try the different models, something which is off the shelf, something which is already available in Searchify. You try it, test it, do the benchmarking. And at times for a feature like spell check, a certain model will work better than the other models, right? For a feature like content findability or a conversational AI, the other things might just be better than something which you're taking from Hugging Face or OpenAI. So I think that's a call we want our customers to take in our product as well. One of the other thing which is I think important, and that's again like we've been slightly cautious, is that we respect that. I mean, if you see at the end of the day, the problem with all of these large language models is hallucination. How do you avoid that? How do you ensure that you make sure that even if you're trying some of these things, the response that you're serving to the end users is accurate and it's something that users can actually trust at the end of the day, because that's all about in enterprise. So I think this is where also we're kind of ensuring that we respect the privacy, we respect the security, and at the end of the day, we also set some sort of a context while leveraging these integrations and models to ensure the information that we're serving is accurate as well. And that brings me to another question I have for you is, and you've written an amazing piece on HPR as well, that how you can actually leverage the power of generative AI to build those personalized interfaces within product as well. So the future is more where you're not really looking at menus and those kind of things, but the product is really looking at the whole journey and trying to understand what you really want to do at the end of the day, what features or what information you're looking for within the product. And there's a thin line of, you see, personalization, the moment you add the personalization on top of these large language models, you start getting these questions around the accuracy and privacy and security, as I mentioned. One of the things that where I want your take is, do you think because for us, I think we're just feeling that anything we are doing, any integration we are doing, there has to be some human angle at the end to review what is being produced. But based on your experience, David, do you also think there's some sort of a thing that you're seeing where the support agents and AI can actually work in parallel? They can just complement each other, and they can do much better. We can build much better personalization experiences for the end customers. What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you an example of where I think this can go. One of the things that reps can have when a customer calls in, for example, is a lot more information about that customer's context. So let's actually take the example I talked about earlier about somebody who had a problem getting something done on an app. So let's think about that customer who had a problem on an app calling into customer service. Let's actually use AI to do a number of different things. So when the rep is about to get the call, the system can actually go immediately in to the various databases at the telecom company and say, what's been the journey of this customer? What's the context of this customer? So a bit more about who this person is, what products they have, and what have been the 5 interactions that that customer has had with the company across channels before. So let's bring all of that together in terms of the customer's journey. And let's actually know from AI and pattern recognition that they could not get done a task on the app. So now that comes into the rep. Now the rep has that information. Generative AI can actually provide right there a prompt to the rep of what they should tell the customer. So if this is a legitimate problem, that's a bug. There may not be a lot the customer can do, and the rep could take care of it for the customer, again, with a generative AI interface for the rep, where the rep can say, here's how this customer wants to pay a bill. Please send a link to the customer that can help them actually get this done. If it's something where the rep should instruct the customer, it can provide that information. But again, it could just provide a link to the rep that they can email to the customer, and the customer can take action. And some of this where the rep can actually be in the middle, look it over, make sure it makes sense, but a lot of it helping the rep get something done for the customer by interpreting the customer's context and then generating a capability for either the rep or the customer to take action. I think the key here, and this is an interesting question, I think too, Vishal, is the ability of these large language models, not just to pull everything from the general internet, it's actually to pull from all of your own enterprise systems. So the large language model may be originally trained to develop its algorithmic capabilities off the broader internet, but then when you actually want to apply it, you're applying it within the domains of your own systems. And I know that's something Search Unify has really focused on in building that. And I think that's an important distinction that people have to recognize, that these models don't always have to go out to the broader internet. You can just have them work within your domains. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think some of the beta programs that we are doing, David, with our customers revolve around all of this only. As you rightly said, you can't be just sending everything to these large language models and then assuming that the response which is coming is you can just directly throw that to the end user. There has to be a context setup that has, context building has to happen. Some sort of, I would say, feature training is also required. Prompt engineering is also required. Some of these new things that we're doing, they're important because in enterprise, you really can't be inaccurate in the information you're serving. Couple of examples, if I could give you the use cases we've been taking is, for example, conversational AI. AI is one thing. Traditionally, you've seen the chatbots being very menu driven, or at the best, they can just serve you some search results at the end of the day. One of the interesting use cases is how do you generate more natural responses from those search results via bot? So this is accurate because it's actually serving from that restricted content set only, help set only, and not from everything that large language models have learned. And the power that you're leveraging is just to convert those responses and trying to make them more natural, which obviously increases the probability of user actually digesting that information and resolving the problem. So conversational AI is one thing, and then similarly in product search is also becoming very interesting with generative AI now. As you also highlighted in your piece that you've written on HPR, same sort of integrations we're also doing where within product you can just open and you can ask just open-ended questions to the chatbot. Okay, show me the top 10 queries that were searched by the customers today. It takes you to that report and understand the question, right? Just takes the user right away to that report. Similarly, okay, How do you really upload this list into a marketing automation software? You go to the documentation, read the documentation, fetch the steps, do a baby step kind of this thing response to the end user, and they can just implement that. The other use cases where we are actually started generating some content as well, which is in support. If you see the concept of KCS support agents, they always struggle with generating new help articles. So they get an issue, they work on the issue, they resolve the issue. But what if you get the same issue again, right? So at the end of the day, someone has to write a piece of content so that if you see the same issue again, can be resolved quickly, or if you survey to the end users as well, then you can see some self-service as well. And generally, we've seen support agents, they hate to write, they don't like writing. And this is where generative AI is becoming very powerful. We've been able to integrate that in the software where right on the agent screen, when they're actually resolving a case, we can generate the possible article that they should be writing, like the title of the article, some sort of a summary, some sort of template that they can pick. So this is very powerful. The other I would say is at times, customer support agents, they get long cases, huge attachments. Takes a lot of time to go through that information and kind of really get the gist of what the customer is asking for. You build a simple summarization integration, and you kind of like show that to the support agent. Makes it very easy for the agents to move forward with that ticket. So I think these are like some of the interesting use cases that we are doing. We are very early stage, and some of these things we'll probably highlight in our next session also, which product team is doing. But we're very open to the feedback from our customers that they can just come and join us, play with all of these integrations. We're also in the early stages. But yeah, I mean, some cool stuff already happening.
Really exciting. Those are some great examples.
Thank you, Vishal, for those great examples. Any closing remarks, David, before we move on to the next session?
I think just my own closing remark is just think about this not just as a way to generate language, as I said before, but really as creating gateways for reps or for customers to get complicated things done. And it's not just about writing something, it's about getting broader capabilities executed.
I completely agree. I think it's the content writers were probably the first one to start looking at generative AI, but I think every team we can see in our this thing here as well. I've been talking to somebody at sales ops. Every other team I think can start leveraging the use cases with generative
Everyone
AI.
can be a coder.
Yeah, everyone can be a coder. You're right. I mean, a little bit of a coding knowledge, and you can just build any integration. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Thanks, Vishal. I think this was a great session. A lot of insights for our audience to take, and I would encourage the audience to leave their comments, leave their questions in the chat, and we'll definitely get back to them. And based on these insights, I think I can safely conclude that as a lot of these LLM integrations and LLM fuel solutions become commercially available, it is very essential that these new models are domain trained. They are, we start off these integration solutions for non-customer, low risk use cases to start off with, and of course provide better enterprise grades security as we go forward. Thanks, David. Thanks, Vishal, for joining us today, and we're excited to kick off our next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.